Hi, I'm Lynn Hinderaker, and I want to be part of your dream. Believe it or not, we're going to take a new look at your career, your work, the state of Nebraska, and how it's all coming together in your consciousness, for lack of a better word. I love that word, by the way, but people go, well, how does that fit into a business type of a program or content? I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today as we visit over our promotional sponsorship. You're going to learn about an organization that blends business strategy, so important, we talk about a lot here, with psychology, self-concept, and a sense of inspiration. And you put those two things together and you've got quite an executive mentality and a view of the future. But let's step back right away and take a quick look at some of the key things that people are going through right now. And of course, we all know that there's a lot of change happening right now, driven by technology and a lot of other things. People are moving around in their careers. And frankly, a lot of small business people are just kind of staying where they're at, and they're reluctant to move forward in any particular direction. And that creates a little bit of a problem. And people know that. They realize that, of course. But the key idea is that they are, how should I say this, unclear about the focus, unclear about what they should be doing at this moment, unclear about where they're going, right? So what we're seeing right there is a need to be visionary, a need to be thematically forward thinking. This is what so many people, especially those under the ages of 50 and 40 and so on, they're looking for progress. They want to see benchmarks, examples of how we're changing and adapting to what's happening. Then there's a whole other group, and many of them, by the way, are standard. They're smart people, they're intelligent, they're doing good things and so on, but they are not really looking to make changes because they feel like on the landscape in front of them, first of all, that the customer is changing, The customer wants to talk with vendors and talk with them about what they can do for them, but they don't necessarily want to buy. So salespeople are going through a tremendous problem right now. They are really trying to figure out, how do I come at this situation and how can I position myself correctly? And most importantly, they're saying to themselves, what questions? We all know that this is the key to salesmanship, is to ask the right questions and to be really listening, right? And to try to get out of that superficial, how you been, what's going on, how's biz, but rather come down to a deeper level, a more thoughtful level, and then listen more carefully and try to get a handle on exactly what is really going on and asking these kinds of open-ended questions. And by the way, most salespeople, of course, are thought of as fast talkers. You can come up with great ideas and cool, like to talk a lot and blah, blah, blah. But really, more and more, we're finding out that the effective salesperson in this chapter, this era of business here in the state of Nebraska, requires, I'm going to say, psychology, kind of the thought of being like a psychologist, where you ask an insightful question and then you put it down, right? You stop. You just listen carefully. You let it lay, and your prospect will begin to talk at a somewhat deeper level, reveal themselves and reveal their aspirations and the problems that they're having. And so salespeople can then listen carefully. Think about when you go to see the doctor, and you do that maybe once or twice a year and so on. You may have some affliction or some issue that you're a little concerned about. The doctor will, take a look at it. They might bring in some diagnostic tools and so on. They may bring in a specialist to come into the room and take a close look as well. They're going to somehow take a photograph, some type of high-tech examination and so on. All of these things take place fairly quietly. The doctor doesn't say, oh, well, this is obviously this and this and this. Thanks so much. Goodbye. It doesn't work like that. And the customer that you're trying to talk to in these days is kind of like that. They want to be kind of like thoughtful, analyze. Somebody's going to be asking me important questions. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Let me think so I can answer the question the salesperson is asking, and so on. So this is a key aspect right now. It's kind of a mixed up aspect because there are definitely people that want to let's kick it up. Then there's a lot of small business people and entrepreneurs. These are people that are very nervous about their very existence. They are hustling. When you get on the interstate here in Omaha, Nebraska, and you're driving down, you'll see a lot of trucks, vans, and so on, and a lot of very interesting companies. And of course, they have big graphics on the outside and so on. And as they go by, I think to myself, I need to maybe drop by and see those people and kind of see what their view of the world is at this particular time. So maybe I, as a consultant or a senior advisor, can be of some value to them, because the sense is, well, we've been doing this for a long time and it seems to be working out okay. We get by every day or every week. We're just going on here, keeping going. Yeah. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to, and this is something I hope everybody listens carefully to, speak to the Nebraska Electrical Contractors Association, NECA, I think it is. And the purpose of that, they had the owners of all kinds of companies, most of them, of course, electrical in nature, but they all have different variations, that they do and they provide. And some of them have HVAC in addition to electrical aptitudes and so on. But anyway, the point of it all was to somehow identify and educate the second level of worker in these different companies, right? This is somebody who's been around the company for a while, and maybe the boss sees this person as a potential partial owner or manager, general manager, whatever, and they need some leadership because at this point in their career, they really are experts at electricity and so on and energy, but have had no education about management and leadership. So I had this. It was a privileged opportunity, really, to listen to a big room and really talk about what leadership really is and how to manage and how to motivate the rest of the employees or workers in the shop and convince them that we need to expand our services or do a better job with our existing customers. The phone isn't ringing like it used to, so we need to do some different things in that way. Maybe we need to actually bring in a marketing person or a different kind of a salesperson. But anyway, I pulled out some pictures that I had received earlier in my career, and they were big pictures done by Pablo Picasso. And I pointed out to them, and I lined them all up sequentially against the wall. And I think there was about 7 or 8, and we kind of had them framed a little bit and so on, so they stood up nicely against the wall. And I said, everybody get up here and take a look with me, and we'll start on the left-hand side where the images that Picasso was writing were pretty realistic. You could see what he was doing and so on. And so I said, when you first start as a manager or a leader there of your company, it's going to be relatively easy to determine what to do next. The lines of definition in the picture symbolize the lines of definition in your business and your office. We need to talk more about this. We need to do a better job on that. It's very clear when you look at this image what Picasso was painting or creating and what people needed to be talking about. Then we go on to the next picture, right? And now the image that Picasso had painted is, somewhat different. You still can see a human being and a face and so on, but it's quite distorted and different colors and so on. A little bit unusual. And I said, as you get into it as a manager, you'll see that it's not quite as easy as it may initially sound like when you were a non-manager. And you have to make some assumptions, and you may have to focus on this side of the image over here and this side of your career or your business or your customers or whatever. And people are going, that's an interesting point that he's making. And then we go to the third image. And now we're kind of getting into Picasso's Afro-Cubist type of chapter that he was. It was a style of painting he picked up over the years. and and again, I said, well, now you're really seeing a not a mixed up jumble. It's still happening, and metaphorically, you're still working and doing some great things, but it may be particularly difficult for you to know which direction to go. It's kind of like you're going to have to try some things and go down a different direction. Maybe you're going to pick up some new products and services that are going to be indistinguishable to the customer, but you're the one that's bringing those to the party, and you're going to say, well, we do this as well now, and this is really good, and it's become more digital, whatever. Okay. And so we went down. I took them down a whole path. I think it was 8 different images. And as we got towards the very end, pardon me, the whole image was extreme. It was very abstract. Beautiful, by the way, but very abstract, unable to determine what this is or that is. And this is when I really got down to it with these people. These were all, and they're focused, and they're going, this is incredible. We never thought about management symbolically before. And the products that we sold, I've never thought of them symbolically before. So this guy is really coming from a different angle, but it's really interesting, and it's certainly not boring. So he assumes that we're intelligent. This is the other thing. I assumed that they were smart enough to understand that metaphors and symbols can, in fact, be great learning or teaching instruments. But I told them, I said, there's going to come a time in your career when you don't know whether or not you should hire this or that person. You don't know whether or not you should go forward with the new equipment, the new technology. And you may not realize that there's a great deal of value in marketing and bringing in different people, maybe different talent, maybe some outsource, maybe some contracting, any of these kinds of things. And they're going, wow, our organization never did any of those things. They do make sense, I guess. I've never seen them, but I do know that other businesses do this kind of thing. And so here is this guy, Lynn Hinderaker, bringing us into this abstract, unusual world, but we think it's beautiful by any means. It's attractive, and so we get where he's taken us. This is a bridge, right? This is a bridge to the future, and this was a very exciting moment for them because they knew right away that I was saying, "You're smart. Figure this out. Understand the rules are changing in the world of business as well as in your specific technological chapter or industry." So this was a very interesting moment for them, and they were very generous in their praise afterwards as they filled out the forms and so on. But what's really exciting is that there is a whole generation of young people, men or women, by the way, that are looking for the next thing, the next way to come at their careers. And by the way, if you listen to managers and they go off in a corner and they're talking, they're a little concerned about this next generation. I'm sure you've heard about this before. I mean, they're very sharp, obviously. We're talking about Gen Z now and Gen Y to some extent. Very sharp in certain respects, right? They know how to handle certain digital opportunities and so on. But they're very, how do I say? They have difficulties forming relationships. Now, we all know in business, you've got to be able to form relationships, get along with people, trade information, and so on. But this is not what Gen Z is terrific at. And so that's a concern. They're not comfortable with building relationships. They spend a lot of time looking at their phones instead of talking with people. And there's a breakdown between people and departments and the communication, and a lot of inefficient information is getting dropped in between people and departments. All of this is difficult with you have these younger people. They didn't realize they had to write an intelligent paragraph with a positive spin or a little upbeat spin on it when they send off an email to their boss or the client or whatever. So all these things need to be taught in a coaching mode typically. And the young people that are coming up into management need to be told this is a new ball game and you have a wonderful opportunity to really stretch out and redefine what your organization is and does and is capable of doing in the next chapter, and so on. It's an exciting game, and we'll get back to it here in just 1 minute. I'm Lynn Hinderaker, and you're watching WowBiz Nebraska. You probably know that already because we are thrilled to have you, and we've really acquired a nice core of audience. Obviously, people that are interested. They want to get educated. They want to be sharper. They want to be into management, and they're not quite sure how to get there from here. So WowBiz Nebraska is a great asset, a great step up. Now, this show is brought to you by two sponsors. I'm going to speak very briefly about both of them. One of them is called Nebraska Now. Nebraska Now is an exciting organization. They pull people together and they talk about how can we make more money, how can we be more profitable at the same time that we can impact the community and the civic dimension of our community. We think we're falling behind. We're having difficulty attracting young people to come to our businesses, apply for a job, and so on. We're hip to that. We understand that. We understand why. And so the people in Nebraska Now think about this, talk a lot about it, and there are a lot of different concepts we can't go into here, but a very important organization. Track down Nebraska. You heard me right, Nebraska, Nebraska Now. That's the organization you want to be associated with as you go into the future if you consider yourself a progressive manager or worker. Now, we also have a new sponsor called Supermind. Now, this is fascinating. I can't wait to tell you about this, but I'm going to be real short. The left half of our brain is going to be focused on business and all the different concepts that go into a successful company. Think of all the words associated with that. And then the right half of your brain, and this is in Supermind, is associated with intuition, imagination, all these kinds of things that lead to happiness and self-concept. So when you put these business and personal growth kinds of words together and talk about them in front of other people, would be members of this so-called Supermind group that I've just mentioned briefly. It's a fascinating experience. You're going to find out who you really are, what you stand for, what you believe in strategically, as well as personally, and your development, your sense of concept, and who you really think you are and are meant to be. This is an exciting conversation, and you heard it right here on WowBiz Nebraska. Whether it's Nebraska Now or Supermind, check them out. You'll enjoy experience in both of these right here from WowBiz Nebraska. Yeah, that's right. All right, well, listen, what an exciting day we have here in front of us. I just want to share a couple different things with you, and I'm going to do something that very few hosts would ever do. They take a gamble, or I'm taking a gamble right now. And I'm going to chat with you a little bit about the words of great business leaders. Now, you can imagine over the years, there's many business leaders, and a lot of them said some incredible things, and some of them are really worth thinking about. And so I'm going to do that. I have a book here called In the Words of Great Business Leaders, right? And I'm going to open up this book to some kind of a random page. And I don't know exactly what it's going to be, of course, but I'm just going to read it to you as a paragraph, and then I'm going to try to interpret it in the context of what's going on in the state of Nebraska, our economic development, your organization, business-wise, and so on, and just see if there's any interesting collusion or coordination or cooperative. All right, so I opened something here. It's called Profit Theory, all right? Says, those of us who are in business management face the challenge of proving, not in words, but in deeds, that profit is good and more profit is better. The idea that profit is good is difficult for many people to accept. The idea that higher profits are even better is still harder to accept. Now, this is a very interesting topic. What the critics of profit see on the surface is that business aims are not aimed at helping people, but at making profits through people. Their instincts tell them that one man's profit is another man's loss, so they conclude that profit means exploitation. But experience is a better guide than instinct, and experience tells us that in a competitive economy, businesses profit most from those ventures that best serve the general economic welfare. So, many people in Gen Z, that generation right now, are very uncomfortable with the fact that capitalism tends to be, at least it feels to them, as if it's exploitive. They see a lot of people, a lot of portions of our population, especially now as we go through this inflationary period. A lot of people don't have enough money, can't get through, can't get to payday, trying to figure out, how to make more money, taking a second job, so to speak, all this. And they kind of blame businesses that are working hard and they're looking for more profits. And sometimes they'll figure out a way to increase sales, increase revenue, and the employees themselves don't benefit at all, if hardly at all, and they feel like that's unfair. And what happens is they lose their excitement about the company. Somehow the company seems to be doing really well. They're providing benefits to certain people, but I'm not getting those benefits. And so, but I can't just walk away because I need to bring money home and food and gas and all these kinds of considerations. So now, and in addition to this, on top of it all, we have a real issue with a sector of our population that needs help, flat out, period. Even especially with children and so on, people don't work. Some people are just too old to work. They can't generate any more revenue. They are losing their homes, perhaps. They're losing their car. So we believe that the company, or a lot of times employees will believe that the company needs to be more charitable, more helpful, and do it in a very authentic way, not some kind of a gesture that gets people wound up and excited and all that, but it really ends up being very little. So they have these conversations, the board of directors will sit around and talk about, well, how much should we donate and what's appropriate, and is this going to help us at all, or is that not the point? So these are people that are going through serious consideration, social responsibility. If you're under 40, there is definitely a sense of commitment. What are they doing for the rest of the population while they increase their sales, increase profits? It's a difficult thing to know if you're sitting on that board because you're being judged by the profits that you help generate. By the way, this conversation I'm having with you right now is coming up at a time when Elon Musk, I'm sure you know this by now, has been named as the first and only trillionaire on the planet, Mr. Elon Musk. Now, again, we're looking at this, we realize there's tons of investors that are investing in SpaceX and Mr. Musk's various innovations, high-tech stuff, and so on, but particularly the rockets and the SpaceX project and so on. So people are excited about that. They have the money, and they're just throwing money at Elon Musk, while a significant, about 51% of our population is unsure about money. They're not sure they're going to have enough money, and they're uncomfortable with it, and they don't know what's next, and how should we deal with this, and there's a percentage of that, about half of those, about 25% people that are in deep, dire straits financially. Now, these are people that the board of directors, and the large corporations, the investment groups, and so on, they can't relate. They cannot relate empathetically and authentically to these people and the problems that they have, and yet they are very much, they are human beings. They care about the same things. They're willing to work in most cases, and they want to work, but for whatever reason, they can't generate enough revenue to pay for the fundamentals. So this, as I leave here, and I want to tell you this final thing. This is a major trend. Unhappiness, all right? Now, if you're a senior official or an executive or whatever, you got to think ahead, 5, 10 years ahead in your company. You got to think about the mentality of the people in general, and your buyers, your customers, and your competitors. And there's a tremendous amount of dissatisfaction about their life, unhappy. The future does not look bright for a large portion of our entire country, and even the buyers of some of these companies. So Walmart's doing well, as you might guess. There is a value revolution going on. This is something I was involved with in 1987, 88, 89, 90, and so on. That was the very first value revolution. Here we are. This is the fourth, by the way, the fourth value revolution since Taco Bell came up with the value menu many years ago. And I don't want to go too far off, but the fact is, all kinds of people, about half of all families right now are shopping very sharp, very price sensitive, very difficult to stretch a buck these days. At the same time, we're watching video or TV, and we're watching a man who is now a genuine trillionaire. So we have quite a chaotic, high contrast situation economically here in our country, but also, of course, here in the state of Nebraska as well, especially in the middle and the western portions of our state. There's real chaos going on, a tremendous amount of concern there in the ag sector. So we've got an awful lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves. How do we take care of others? How do we take care of ourselves? Should we invest? Should we purchase? And most importantly, is our business poised to take advantage of this situation? Can we move forward? This is the key when you bring in a senior advisor or some kind of a marketing person, or an advertiser, somebody who's a senior business executive from outside the realm, maybe bringing in outside contractors and so on. This is all up in the air right now, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big time, and if you want to make a move, this would be a great time to make a bold move in one direction or another. I'm Lynn Hinderaker right here. We're at least 155 shows, and we love doing this. We're hoping that you appreciate the content that we're sharing, and you can tune in to the trends that are driving and shaping our economy here in the state of Nebraska, and of course here in Omaha and eastern Nebraska as well. But all across the entire state of Nebraska, people are saying, what do we have to do? Should we get going? Should we accelerate, as they say with the Nebraska Department of Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce? I say yes. Be bold. Go forward. We'll see you next time here on WowBiz Nebraska.